Hi everybody, how you doing? It's August. August. It's our famous webcast. We're always here excited to be with you all. We have a great
All four of
topic.
you.
What's that?
I said
Oh,
all four of you.
yeah, so please, if you can get more listeners, we want more listeners for sure. So definitely well, I guess let me introduce who I am in case, not that I'm this famous person, but I'm Anthony Paradiso with Industrial U.I services. And with me is my esteemed partner, JoLynn. You want to say hello, JoLynn?
Hello, everyone.
And how are you this morning, JoLynn?
It's rainy and gross, so I wish the sun was shining. But other than that, I'm good.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're well. I wish the weather was a little bit better by you over here. It's not too bad. It's like, oh, it's really nice out. It's just a little bit cooler than usual, which
Mhm.
I'll take. At least it's not 100 degrees.
Right?
Um, but it's getting near the end of summer. I hope everyone has really had a great summer. I mean, we're not at the end yet, but we're getting near it. How has your summer been, Jolene?
Good. Busy, but I like being busy. It's been good.
Good, good. Same here. It's been busy. Um, went to we my husband and I went to Turks and Caicos end of last month, which was probably after our last recording of last month's webcast. So I always like to plug in, try to get mental health. You don't have to necessarily go, to the Caribbean or to Europe or wherever. You can just go, go to the, as we say in New Jersey, go down the shore. Um, Other areas, I know you say the beach, but needless to say, go somewhere, relax, stay home. Just make sure you take care of yourself. Um, with that in mind, again, I'm Anthony with Industrial U.I. As you probably know already, Industrial U.I handles unemployment insurance cost control for our employers. We also do HR support, and we also now do verification of employment or income. So any questions you may have, you could always reach me or JoLynn. My email is aparadiso, so A P as in Paul, ARA, D as in David, ISO at industrialui.com. And JoLynn, how can everyone reach you?
It's J Haresign, JHaresign at industrialui.com.
Perfect. So our topic for today is succession planning. Not to get political at all, but with everything that's gone on the last month with President Biden, stepping down and not running for the next, not running next in this current election cycle. We thought it was really a great topic to discuss succession planning. Again, we're not going to focus so much on the politics of it, but we're going to just kind of focus on, what best practices, I guess, we as HR professionals can take when it comes to, succession planning. But as we always do, we go into some side, fun stuff, not necessarily business related or HR, but it's just, fun to kind of go over. So some information about August. So August was named after a major figure of the ancient Roman world, Augustus Caesar. He was the first Roman emperor. And the grandfather of previous ruler Julius Caesar, who's named July after himself. Um, in the northern hemisphere, August is the last month of summer and the hottest month of the year, which we probably know. And then some specific dates. August 3rd is National Watermelon Day, which is interesting. Do you like watermelon, Jolyn?
I do. Yeah, I do actually like watermelon.
Come to think about it, actually, I haven't had watermelon yet this summer, which is I'm kind of sad about that. Anyway, going off topic. August 8th is National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day. Never knew that existed, but always interesting. August 10th, my favorite day, National S'mores Day. I absolutely love s'mores, so didn't know that existed, but good to know. August 13th, International Left-Handers Day. Didn't, I mean, that's great. We want to be inclusive of everybody. So I'm a right-hander when it comes to writing, but I do actually bat lefty. Anyone cares. And then August 31st is National Trail Mix Day. So just some little kind of nuggets, a little bit side information. And August also highlights celebrations and observations or observances such as U.S. Air Force Day, World Lung Cancer Day, and National Book Lovers Day. So just some side things. And then, as we said before, we're going to go into succession planning. Just some things with succession planning does come a topic of age, obviously. So we just want this is just more of just a reminder under federal law, the Age Discrimination of Employment Act, or the ADEA, generally prohibits employers from mandating retirement based on age before the 1986 amendments. Protection against age discrimination ended at age 70, but now there is no age limit. However, a narrow exception exists for bona fide executives who are 65 or older. They may be required to retire if they're eligible for an immediate non-forbearable annual retirement benefit of at least $44,000. I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of know. And as you know, as I've seen, age has, there's the age has discussion on age has changed. Back, when we were in the 90s, the retirement age, if I'm not mistaken, was around 56, 57, and now we're at 66. So it's just a very interesting dynamic of where we are, which obviously does play into your succession planning, because people may retire a little earlier or later, or well, I guess now they're retiring later. So anyway, with that in mind, the first question we have is how did what we saw with Joe Biden deciding not to seek a second term show us what succession planning strategies we can learn from this process? What are your thoughts, JoLynn, on that?
Well, a little known factoid about me. I went to Syracuse University. Shameless plug for SU, go Orange.
Go Orange.
And I was a political philosophy major.
Okay.
And so I'm a bit of a political dork, but I'm not gonna, talk about politics here. But what was really fascinating to me is, watching all of this unfold. And I thought about how those themes can apply to us in the HR world. You have, if we look at the president, in this example as an executive, he's an executive of a company, and he is reaching a certain age, and maybe the thought is that he's not capable or able to give his 110%. People agree, disagree, whatever. So you make the tough decision that I'm going to retire, I'm going to not seek promotion, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And so what does that say for us? Like, how do you fill that void that is inevitably going to come when your leader steps away? And the sign of a good leader is that there are plans in place for when that day comes. And what we saw unfold in the last, month or so is that, the succession plan in politics can also be, kind of mimicked in the workforce. You have to have a plan in place, because there could be an expected retirement or it could be unexpected. People leave due to illness or whatever. The important thing is that you talk about those things, in advance. You have a plan in place. What is your plan if, God forbid, one of your high level leaders, happens to go out on sick leave or decides to retire? It's important that you have that sort of framework in mind, so that you're not, left with a disruption in your operations because you didn't plan accordingly. So I think that one of the lessons is that we shouldn't be caught off guard. We should make sure that we are planning accordingly to make sure that we have the right people in the right places at the right time.
I guess a follow-up question that I have for you based on what you said, and I agree. How can HR professionals, not even just HR professionals, but how do business leaders prepare for that executive who might be leaving, or someone in leadership, either it be the CEO or CFO, whatever it is? Like, how do we as HR professionals or leaders, are there any signals that maybe we should look at? Is there anything that we can do as leaders that can help us to decipher if a person is going to be leaving? A lot of times, like you said, it's unexpected. So I guess this is, I guess, a question, maybe not to you, but maybe just we have a thought process here, is how do we anticipate that? How do we know? Because like I said, it's unexpected. So how do we prepare for that? So I guess it's just
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is making sure that your workforce is cross-trained in all aspects of your business to the extent that they're able to. That there should be, if you have some sort of leadership hierarchy, who is the quote unquote second in command. There should be people around the CEO. Nothing should be, you know, for the CEO to have keep everything up here and not share
Mm.
it and not share
Yeah.
the knowledge is going to be detrimental to your workforce in the future. So it's important that you engage in mentorship programs, that you are looking to build your future leaders. You as HR professionals can identify skills, knowledge, potential, and look for that spark in your workforce that sees that this person might be a good candidate for leadership and try to fill those roles internally. I'm a firm believer in in looking inward to your own workforce because you've already invested time, money, knowledge, everything into those people to get them to a point where they can move up in the company. It increases engagement, increases morale. Knowing people have an opportunity to go further in the company that they've invested so much time in. So I think it's important that your leadership is spreading the wealth of knowledge
Hmm.
and look towards the future. Like this pool of people that I have are going to be bringing the company forward when I'm no longer here. So think of it as a service to your legacy, after you decide to leave or unexpectedly have to leave, that your knowledge, your expertise have been passed down to someone that you've been grooming, mentoring to get into that role so that there is no disruption in the operations of the business.
Yeah, so like I said, cross training is definitely a key. Um, I think also to add to that too is just having open communication with your staff, your team, finding out, what it is they want. Some team members may not be as outgoing or extrovert in their personality to say, I want these certain things. So as leaders, I'm having those conversations, with your team. Either it could be during evaluation stage, it could be just an open, organic conversation that comes up. So yeah, adding that open communication is really important. But yeah, cross training, just general training and development, so we're all on the same page. If you are training leadership in certain areas, maybe you cross train in other areas, maybe mid management or whatnot. So yeah, I definitely agree. The cross training, because we also have to, we may not know if someone's going to be leaving. It may be very unexpected. So we want to cross train just for that reason too. That person may not even retire. That person may be out for 6 months and may not have the opportunity to train a person to help, them while they're out for the 6 months. So we want to make sure we have someone in place that can take on this role as quickly as possible. Yeah, no, definitely. Which then kind of leads to our next question. What steps were taken to identify and prepare key leaders for their decision, and how can we apply similar steps as to our own succession planning?
Yeah, well, I have kind of a personal experience in this part of succession planning. Before we merged with Industrial UI, I was part of the group management, and our CEO passed away unexpectedly.
Yeah.
It was, I'll see you on Monday, and then that was the last time I spoke to him, and so we didn't have it was him. It was Mr. DeGroot. He was my
Yeah.
mentor. But I was very lucky in that he was, helping me along and learning more aspects of the business. But for a long time, we were, gosh, how are we going to continue his legacy? What are we going to do? And there were people in the organization that really stepped up and, provided that leadership in the vacuum. His son Garrett DeGrew took over the business, and we were able to move forward. But when you have that sort of thing happen to you unexpectedly, it's important that a lesson learned is that you need to be prepared for all, outcomes. You need to be prepared in a way that, you know, if something like that happens, that your company can move forward with, the existing leadership. And it was devastating for us. And we were, we grieved for a long time, but we ultimately felt that we wanted to continue on with the business. And eventually I was able to run the company from the inside, and then help the transition into this merger. So it was really, I got a lot of insight into how that process works. And it was scary, but it was also important to learn those lessons for me to impart on other people who are going through similar issues.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I didn't even think of that when we were preparing for this. I didn't even think of the what you went through as far as the someone passing. So you're not even only are you having to take on now new roles and responsibilities and now run the company, but you're also now grieving.
Mhm,
You worked with this person for X amount of years, not just you, but other employees, other team members were working with this person. So I almost try to like think of it like my current situation, like, if God forbid something happened to one of our, one of our internally, I can't even imagine, because there's that loss, that there's that as well. So not even only are you dealing with the taking on now this extra responsibility, which is stressful in itself, but also the loss. And unfortunately it does happen. Um,
mhm,
you also mentioned another good point too, mergers and acquisitions, putting aside a death. I mean, when there is a merger or acquisition, that's going to change
mhm,
leadership. And that may change, it may not be current, it may not be at this moment. People may stay on board, but but that changes succession because now you have new players in the game who may now want certain positions. Um,
mhm,
so now you're also adding a layer of competitive, competition amongst each other.
mhm,
Um, which listen, competition is never a bad thing, as long as it's handled, um, I think, positively and effectively and respectfully. But then you're also adding that layer of, who, like what, I guess what kind of criteria or qualifications
mhm,
are required, if people want certain positions. So it's just the the merger and acquisition kind of adds a whole other focus to it. And as you mentioned too, with the group, when he passed, and then with our with us combining forces with Industrial U.I and DMS, that also changed a lot of how Industrial U.I, where we are now, how we function.
mhm,
And it also, not even the succession planning itself, but also just the the mentality that everything changes, the flow changes, and it takes time to kind of get used to how each person is. We all have different personalities, so now you have all these different other things that are playing into force once the succession is complete. Not even, well, not that we're ever, I mean, succession is always ongoing.
mhm,
But once people take over certain positions, now you have, as employees and as team members, now you have to kind of get used to this new person. Uh,
mhm.
so it's just something else to kind of, I guess, kind of think of. Um, which is a perfect lead into our next question, is what were some key challenges faced with this transition, and how can we anticipate and address similar challenges in our organization's succession planning?
Yeah, I think the one lesson that I learned was that you should always prepare. You should always prepare for, an eventual retirement, best case scenario. Someone goes out on medical leave. There should be some preparation. You should have a plan in place. Obviously with, Mr. DeGroot's passing, you can never really fully prepare for that.
Yeah.
And we weren't. It was, we were definitely, it was a shock. It was just, but it didn't turn into an unmitigated disaster because we had a leadership structure in place, and we would never ever fill his shoes, but we were able to function, and we were able to grow and succeed, um, with what we had in place. And I think that that's the most important lesson, is that you should prepare for, people are going to have different goals in their life. They may not, they may want to move on to greener pastures, or They may be, burnt out and they just need, a change of scenery. So you should prepare for that eventuality and have plans in place where that knowledge, that institutional knowledge, that those skills are not, you know, gone when that person leaves. There should be some sort of, plan in place where another person or another group of people can take that position.
Yeah, kind of, I guess, kind of like kind of that transferable skills can be
Yes.
passed on to the next person. The other thing that comes to mind when you started saying what you said before is also how do you, as small, and again, it's not really a question necessarily to you necessarily, but this is just a question to put out there in the universe, is how do we, for a small organization, 50 or less people, and you're the owner and you have a staff, how do you plan for succession? Because you're also trying to do the everyday. You're trying to, reach certain sales goals. You have to pay your employees. You have to have healthcare insurance. You have these everyday things that we have to do. So how do we even think about secession? Um, and I guess the answer is you just have to. Somehow you have to kind of just plan that in your day. It could be a quarterly discussion, it could be a every 6 month discussion, at least have a discussion in place. I always find with me, if I have it in my calendar as a plan to have a discussion with somebody, it happens. So
Mhm.
make sure, I guess, you just, you put, discussing it for 30 minutes is better than discussing it, not discussing it at all. So I guess the first step, I guess, if you're not even really, this could really applies to anywhere you are in your organization. If it's a small company, small, large, medium, whatever it is just put the time, you know, kind of like when you have change management, you usually at that point usually you have a small group of, you have a small team you put in place to take on this change. So one thing you can think of maybe doing is kind of preparing that team. Don't take it on yourself, regardless of what size your company is. If it's 20, 50, 1,000, it's not a one person, it's not a one person job. It takes a team to do it. So I think that's something that also needs to kind of be in place is, thinking, I guess, best practices, putting a team together, have discussions. Again, you're not going to have an answer overnight. It's going to be a constant open communication with your team. But yeah, it's not fun. It's certainly stressful and especially when you have someone die unexpectedly, it's a whole other layer to it.
Mm.
Um, but it's certainly a conversation that needs to happen. And we're seeing it in our eyes right now with the whole with the transfer of with the transfer in this election cycle with President Biden kind of passing the torch to Kamala Harris. Again, not discussing politically or whatever, but it's there, it's happening. And one of the things that I'm really and well, what I was kind of impressed, and again, I don't see this as political, is I was very surprised on how smooth it occurred. Um, and I guess a question that I'm wondering curious for your thoughts. Why do you think it was so smooth?
I think that the, the President Biden did a good job in um, transferring his knowledge and skills and ability to connect with people and his, ability to um, motivate people. He picked a really good partner in that, and I think he really invested a lot of time and energy into, her future and making her a partner. And I think that's what I look for in, really good leadership is that not only are you a good motivator, good speaker, good, um, wealth of knowledge to people, but you're also imparting that on other people so that they can be prepared for whatever may come. And I think that was what really impressed me is that, he had this ready-made partner that was ready to take over in this, event that he decided he was no longer going to run. And so
Yeah.
that's the mark of a good leader is that he can spot the talent in the room and really prepare that talent for, the eventuality.
No, I completely agree. No, I think that was very well said. And I think that's nothing to add more to. I think that's exactly what happened. And it's something as, I guess, as leaders, something to inspire to. Again, you can't be exactly like somebody, but you can at least look at what they did. Again, trying to really put aside the politics of it, but just looking at what happened. And it's something that we could, maybe you could use as an example of what we may want to accomplish down the road. Which then leads to our last question is, how can we create a succession planning process that prioritizes diversity, equity, inclusion to build a more representative leadership team?
I think that, also in this case, that the president surrounded himself with people that looked like America. Like he had a really diverse, he built a team that was diverse to begin with. And I think that that is the key, is that when you are prioritizing, different viewpoints, different ideas, different trains of thought, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds, you want your company to look like the world in which they serve, So he really made that a priority. And I think that companies and leaders should make that a priority so that you have, not the same old ideas that, keep coming up when you have, a, a homogenous workforce.
Yeah.
You have to have really good, strong ties to, the community in which you work. And so make sure that your workforce looks like that community. And we want to make sure that we are prioritizing those things. And I think that one of the things that this administration did, in my opinion, again, putting politics aside, is that they prioritized the diversity
Yeah.
and, making sure that people felt included.
Yeah, no, I agree. You want to make sure that your workforce, that your leadership is, what looks like your workforce, looks like the customers that you serve. And in this situation with the president, the nation, America, obviously, you want to create a team that when people see them, they see themselves. That's really important. There's one thing I did want to, I do agree. In the beginning, you mentioned making sure that you hire, not making sure, but recommending to keep things inward. I agree with you. I'm all about promoting and keeping people inward as well. But I will say sometimes you do have to. It is sometimes good to look outside, only because if you haven't hired somebody in like 5 years and you have the same staff and that's great. It's great to have low retention, but you also want to be bringing in new ideas as much as possible. So again, I agree. I do agree to try to. I mean, if you can keep it inward, and again, it also depends obviously on the position. There's so many factors that play into it. But I also do find that sometimes it is a good thing sometimes, depending on the situation, to look at the outside. Again, it's case by case. But I agree with making sure that we're looking at looking at our team, seeing what we look like, seeing our values, looking at what our mission is, and kind of applying all of that to who we're putting into our leadership. So no, I think yeah, definitely I agree. But we are almost out of time. This was a great conversation, JoLynn, as always. It's always great to discuss secession and kind of and actually, as a side note, I like you. I went to Binghamton University, upstate New York, and my major was philosophy, politics, and law. So I'm like you. I was a dork, a political dork. But we're dorks in a good way, not
Yes.
in a good way. But anyway, thank you as always. Thank you everyone for listening. Again, please email us if you want to be a guest. Any topics that come to mind. Just to repeat again, my email address if you want to reach out to me is Paradiso, P as in Paul, D as in David, ISO at industrialui.com. And then JoLynn, I'll leave final thoughts with you and your email address.
Yes, again, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I think it's important. I'm hoping people get a lot out of it. My email address is jharesign@industrialui.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you as always, and we'll see you next month and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, 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 everybody.